Welcome back, everybody, to Ravenstar's Witching Hour. I'm your host, Solaris, BlueRaven, and I'm here with my very special guest, John Lordan. John, you with me?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, it's awesome to have you on tonight, by the way. Chat's very excited to have you and very grateful you're here. So thanks for joining us again. And once again, if people want to get into touch or contact with you, what's the best way to do that?
I'm on Twitter at LordanArts, LordanArts.com if you want to check out any links to any of these videos. Those are the two easiest ways. And I'm really very good about getting back to people via comments on YouTube or if you send me a direct message on YouTube.
Excellent. Yeah, you certainly are. Yeah, I've been following you on YouTube, so I'm very impressed, and other things too. So, yeah, we'll try to get into more details of other facets of what you're up to. But I did want to kind of finish up with this because I find this case very compelling to some degree. And I was going to ask you, insofar as the building goes itself in the hotel, what exactly is it in proximity to? Anything suspicious? Besides, I think you touched on something else with the touring bus, but anything any government facilities close by?
Not really government facilities that I can think of off the top of my head. Downtown LA it's a pretty tight and compact little area down there, but like I said, just a lot of large money businesses and this new kind of yuppie influx. The Walt Disney Music Center is down there. Yeah, not anything suspicious that I would say. I did look up for the LAPD just to clarify that point I was talking about during the last period, and they do get 250 to 300 reports per month of missing people.
Wow. Jeez. Do they ever find them?
Yeah, apparently, according to this, 70% of all missing persons are found or voluntarily returned within 48 to 72 hours.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's interesting, though. Wow, it's a strange world we live in these days. Tell you what.
Yeah, it sure is. Well, and that's one of those weird places where I thought that potentially if you wanted to kill someone and stuff them in a water tank on the top of the building and you made up a fake profile of who that person was, the real person would essentially just become a missing person and kind of stay in that state. So that was kind of one of my original theories when I was thinking that Alisa might have been fabricated.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, the fact that she couldn't really secure the top of the water tank, that to me stands out too.
It's a big one. That's one that a lot of people, even people that, are very adamant about thinking that she led to her own demise, that's one that they really have trouble answering. One of the good theories I heard is perhaps that a hotel worker noticed that the top was off and just put it back on, not realizing that she was in there. I'm not sure how feasible it is, but I think a better question is how come those lids are not secured in some way? I mean, put a padlock on those things. This is water that the residents use to bathe in and to potentially drink. I mean, how easy would it be to poison a building there?
Right. No, that's a really good point you make right there. Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't look into that more thoroughly. Yeah, just so many things don't add up. Go ahead.
The last day that she was seen, it's really worth noting. She went to a bookstore that was around the corner from where she was staying called the Last Bookstore. And you can read about this on Wikipedia. I'm going to actually quote directly from that here in a second. But Katie Orphan is the manager of that bookstore, and she directly helped Alisa when she was there. And she says specifically here, she was outgoing, very lively, very friendly, while getting gifts to take home to her family. She was talking about what book she was getting and whether or not she would be getting what she was getting would be too heavy for her to carry around as she traveled. So we have testimony from someone that directly interfaced with her on the day where she went missing, saying this is a girl that was in perfectly normal spirits, and as a matter of fact, she was buying gifts for her family and worrying about how she was going to carry them around to get them back home. Mm-hmm. So her intent, at least earlier in that day, seemed very normal.
Right. Well, I think a couple of things that stand out obviously was the footage in the elevator. Something's wrong there, and it does look to me like obviously if they're manipulating it, they're covering up something. That's just my take. And then also, I'm still thinking that there's a second person rather with the shoe, what looks like a shoe to me. It could. I mean, I encourage people to look at the video and tell me what you see. But to me, it looks like there is a shoe there. It's not her sandal because she has open toe sandals. It looks like a man's shoe, a black man's shoe. If I had to guess, I would say maybe, I don't know. But it's interesting. I'll tell you what. So there's a lot there that I'd say those two things alone, I think are components to what really went down. and of course it's been manipulated. So how is anybody going to find out?
Right. I also did find a body language analyst that did kind of a almost second-by-second analysis of her body language throughout the whole video.
Mm-hmm.
And most of what they pick up on, they think that she might have even been romantically interested or preening herself sexually, was their quote. In some of the ways that she kind of bends her fingers back while she's talking to someone, it looks like she's almost making points, like she's counting on her fingers at one point. She runs her hands through her hair several times and kind of gets her hair back behind her ears. Their analysis of what she went through it's pretty different than most people's initial assumption about what her mindset or how scared she might be. And it's weird. She doesn't seem that scared in certain aspects. There are points where it does look like she is. You know, if you stick your head out of an elevator and whip it in both directions and then pull yourself back into the elevator and hide in a corner, I mean, are you potentially playing hide and go seek with a love interest, or are you worried that, you know, someone's there to harm you? It could kind of be seen both ways. But in one of my videos, I go through that source a lot. And in most of my videos, I'm very good about putting all the sources for the research that I've done in the description box. So know that if you check out any of that Brain Scratch series on this Alisa Lam case, don't stop when the video's over. Go look for yourself. Check out the links that I leave down there. You can dive even deeper. And the comments, I really have to give a shout out to the viewers and commenters. I've been very fortunate that I only get a couple of what people would consider YouTube trolls. Mm-hmm. In general, the comment section are full of people that are really interested in this case, very open-minded, contributing really interesting thoughts. Sometimes they have links to very pertinent information. Really, the Brain Scratch show is one aspect, but the way that the comments keep going and expanding on the case even further is another. So if you do check out the show, I highly recommend checking out those commenters and being sure to drop some of your own comments in there. It really helps for all of us to think about it.
Exactly. And that's what I like about YouTube. That's really refreshing, actually, that you have only a few trolls, because that's the way people should behave is actually, you know, this way, insofar as supporting each other and being productive insofar as trying to figure things out. So I applaud you for that once again. Now, do you know if she had any, if there was, well, obviously there's only that bit of footage, but was she ever seen talking to herself?
I don't think I bumped into anything where she was seen talking to herself before.
Okay. I'm just curious, you know, because that would have been something spiking up. Obviously, if she's quote unquote schizophrenic or something like that, then she might have been really hearing something.
Yeah, that's a great question. And no, I don't think I've seen anything with her talking to herself. Okay. Her social media, if you read through you know, as much as there is of it, you really get this feeling of this girl that is desperate to be a part of a community. She feels like an outsider. She really does feel like she doesn't quite have it figured out. She's interested in trying to find a boy. But there's this kind of sadness that she has that weaves in and out of her social media of her really feeling like an outsider, which I think it just adds to the gravity in this case if you really dive into it.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And then you did mention she had, well, was it an internet stalker or were they at the hotel? She said some guys were bothering her. No, it's like
they were at a bar.
Okay.
It's like she was out at a bar and she was approached by a couple of people and she wasn't really happy with it. And she was talking about how, you know, some guys don't know how to take a hint.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, you think if she had her iPhone with her or whatever kind of phone, then she would have been able to capture an image of somebody or someone who was shadowing her or stalking her at the facility, or even turn it into management. I mean, even go to the front desk. Yeah,
absolutely. There's all kinds of stuff that I mean, she was a bright girl. This isn't someone that was. I mean, she was maybe socially awkward at best, but she was definitely a bright girl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find it suspicious how she got up to the roof. I really do. It almost seems like somebody got her up there, but yeah. That's
my feeling too. I mean, and maybe it was under the guise of some type of romance type thing. Hey, let me take you up to the roof. Some people are kind of they bring up a point that some of her social media shows pictures of rooftops, particularly a few days before she disappeared. Mm-hmm. not that she was fascinated. I think she was just fascinated with cool art. And there's this one picture in particular where it looks like a man that's walking up the side of a building that a lot of people refer me to. And what's very interesting is her Tumblr account. After she disappeared, her Tumblr account actually lived on. And there are new posts all the way through February, through March, and then they kind of start dwindling off. I've had some people that are programmers that have looked at the code for those websites, and they think that she might have set up queued posts in advance. But it's really weird because if you look at her Tumblr account from when we know she's alive, like I mentioned, she's into fashion. You see a lot of pictures of shoes, and there's one model in particular, I can't remember her last name, but her name is also Alisa, that she's kind of a fan of, and she followed this model on Twitter also. And then as we know, she disappears on February 1st. As you go into February, the posts are still very similar, and there's almost a full month's worth of posts there. So there's a lot of media was even asking, who the hell's updating Alisa Lam's account? How's this happening?
Right.
And I believe it goes on for almost a year. I think the last post is in December of 2013, and once again, it's that model that she was a fan of, which she posted of several times in there. So that's one of the things that when I was theorizing about the fake profiles, I was thinking, hey, did someone set all this up, and did they goof this somehow? And even if you look at the aspect of if she was planning on ending her life at this point, is Alisa trying to set this up, to be some type of internet theory or something that, this ghost girl is posting on here. There's a few different ways to look at it, but either way, it's really strange. I don't know who would set up that many posts that far in advance. I mean, especially for several months.
Right. Yeah, that sounds suspicious to me, if you ask me. That just doesn't sound right. I guess I wonder if they could track the ISP or something like that and see if it's being remotely manipulated in some way. I mean, once again, you never know.
Yeah, the computer stuff around this case is a little weird, too. Apparently, she had a laptop with her. I don't believe they found that in her room, so it seems like her laptop went missing. I mentioned earlier that we believe that she had her own cell phone. I've seen reports where that was missing, but then I've seen other people say, no, the LAPD actually has it, and they just haven't released that information for some reason. But there is this weird aspect when you look at the digital life of Alisa and all this, that even more questions get raised.
Right, yeah. Well, laptops, and we all know that they can be remotely accessed. So, I mean, it seems to me like if they really wanted to find her or find her, quote-unquote, possible killer, then all they have to do is access that laptop and figure out where it went. Somebody has it.
Absolutely. Every laptop has, individual markings. You can trace that sucker down and know specifically who it belonged to. Outside of that, there's a theory of, did someone get her laptop and then do these other posts? Did they look at her old Tumblr account and try to mimic it for some reason?
Good point. Yeah. That's highly possible. Another thing comes to mind is I have a background in surveillance too, and I've worked in surveillance in casinos. And I'll tell you, I'm wondering if there were cameras, surveillance cameras across maybe from other buildings on top of the roofs or at street lights. Is there where they could actually do a media review and actually look to see what was going on that night from another facility?
Yeah.
Do they even check that? I mean, does anybody even check? I mean, we live in a world where everything is cameras on the corner.
I would like to hope that they did, but this case, the police records on it are very slim. It's really hard to find any official documentation. Let me put out to all the listeners, if you bump into any information that you think I haven't reviewed yet, please get me a message and point me towards that. Trying to find the official police records for this case it's like searching for a needle in a haystack. And it's weird because I've done an investigation into a different case now, the one with Kendrick Johnson, and I've got more police records than I have time to read in that case. But for some reason on this Alisa case, they're very tight, very hard to come by.
Yeah, they're kind of getting tight-lipped about it, I guess. So we'll have to go into the Kendrick Johnson. How recent is that one?
Yeah, Kendrick Johnson. I just started this series. I've done 2 videos on it so far. And Kendrick Johnson was a high school student. You probably heard about this case. I believe it also happened in 2013 in Valdosta, Georgia. And he is seen. Now, this is a place where we have cameras all over the place. There's like, the school has, I think, upwards of 30 to 40 cameras. He goes to school, and we see him going into what is called the old gym. Apparently they have a new gymnasium and an old one. And there are some strange things about the footage here, too, where even CNN thought that there was some manipulation going on with these cameras, because you'll see him walking across the gym floor, and all of a sudden it cuts, and there's two different students just standing there all of a sudden. But essentially, Kendrick goes to the back corner of this gym, which the only camera that's facing that is for some reason completely blurry and out of focus. And there are a stack of wrestling mats and cheerleading mats that are back there. And Kendrick disappeared that day. The next morning, his mom called the school, and I think it was cheerleaders that were in the old gym the next morning. They were playing up on these mats, and one of the mats was turned up on its side, and someone noted that there looked like there was two socks that were down inside this mat. And they called the gym coach over, and the gym coach tipped the mat down, and Kendrick's body fell out. So essentially he was upside down in this gym mat that was rolled up and turned up on its end. Mm-hmm. And it's a really strange case because, like I said, there was so many cameras, but for some reason there's no footage about what happened to him. I have learned that these cameras are motion sensitive, and essentially the corner of the gym that he went to, he kind of was out of the range of the camera. The official police story on this, and get ready, so big surprise, is that they think he died accidentally trying to climb down into this rolled up gym mat to retrieve a shoe. Apparently he didn't have a locker on campus, so he would store his basketball shoes in these mats or around these mats. So it's a sad case right off the bat, but once again we hit this element of mystery. The way that the gym mat was rolled up, and this is noted in the police records, it's only a little over 14 inches on one side, and I think 14 3/4 inches on the other side. Well, Kendrick's upper body is 19 inches wide. So how he even got in there is a mystery in itself. The way his body was found, for some reason, his shoes that he was wearing, not his basketball shoes, but his other shoes, were off, and they were right next to his socked feet. So how that happened is a bit of a mystery. Some people think that, he might have potentially been maybe the victim of some kind of prank where someone got him into the mat somehow and then turned it up on its end and threw his shoes in there to hide the fact that he was in there. But it's once again another one of these cases that's sad. You have this life that's just kind of cut away too early.
Right.
And the evidence doesn't point to a neat, clean, believable story that everyone would like. His family, they're currently kicking off a major lawsuit against the school, against the sheriff's department. There was another student who Kendrick had a fight with in a previous year, and his father is an FBI investigator.
Oh, there you go.
There is basically the conspiracy theory there is that the father had something to do with a type of hush campaign to try to make this look like it was an accidental death, and to clear he had two sons that were going to school there with Kendrick, and to clear one or both of them of having anything to do with it.
Wow.
What's interesting about that is those two students, they decided not to help the investigation. Out of over 100 people that were interviewed, they were the only two that wouldn't allow themselves to be interviewed to help the police investigation.
Oh, that's very suspicious.
Yeah, and it really makes you kind of wonder, what's the mentality of that? I mean, just for me, if I was in school and found out that not even a friend, but just a fellow classmate had died, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be part of that investigation and give whatever information I can to help that. Even if it was someone that I fought with previously, and even if I assume that I'm being extremely selfish and only trying to protect my own interests, I would probably still be part of the investigation so I could at least clear my name. Right. And this has had incredible fallout for his family. His father was reassigned to a different division of the FBI, and I think he had to move to a different town for that job. So his mom stayed in one place, the father's in another. The son of the FBI agent was a football player, got a scholarship for Florida State University, and just lost it, basically the university. Once they heard that he was tied up in this potential lawsuit around Kendrick's death, they revoked it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's very suspicious, if you ask me, and that whole group of people. I would be looking at them as well, for sure. It sounds like a murder. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Somebody put him in there. He didn't go in by himself. I mean, that would be logical. The logical way to observe this would be foul play.
Yeah, and there's a lot of questions about the other shoe that was down there. It didn't seem to, essentially what happened with his body upside down for that whole period is his organs kind of collapsed on themselves and blood ran out just from his nose and mouth, but in a pretty good amount. And the shoe that he was reaching for that they found down there doesn't appear to have a whole lot of blood on it. There is some blood on the laces, but for as much blood as his body leaked out, it doesn't look particularly right. The other shoe that matches that basketball shoe is not even in the mat. It's 20 feet away from it. And it's really not feasible that he would have been able to get one and throw it because of how tight the mat's rolled up. He couldn't even get his arms behind him.
Right. Sounds like more than one, too, like more than one person did that.
Yeah, that's kind of my original gut feeling on it is, either someone planned something very bad to happen to him, or potentially, like I said, it could have been a prank. It could have been something about, hey, why don't we see if you can crawl through this? And then a couple of guys tilt him up and laugh as they go running off, thinking that he's going to be stuck in there for 20 minutes before he gets himself out. Mm-hmm. Well, there's a video that was done by some college students, and you can check this in the description box, like I mentioned, on the Brain Scratch videos. And they put a wrestler into one of these mats and tilted it up on its end. And they tested, first of all, could he knock the mat over? And he couldn't. His legs were bound so tight that he basically couldn't get enough force to push the mat either direction. And then they had him scream for help, and you literally cannot hear a thing. The mat just absorbs all of it because of the way that his body is kind of corking himself in there. Mm-hmm. Now, what's interesting about that video, I wish that they would have tested the theory about getting into the mat, which they don't go into at all. Show that mat up on its side and then have that guy try to squeeze in there and see if it's even feasible. Because that's, in terms of the believability of the official story for Kendrick, that's the part that's really hard to believe, is even if for some reason he wasn't smart enough about putting himself in a dangerous position, how could he have squeezed himself into a mat that was rolled up that tight? How would you even move? Your arms would either be stuck ahead of you, or maybe you would be able to get them to clear your body once and they would be stuck behind you.
Right.
And then you have this question about his shoes being off. How did the shoes get in there? Did he flip them off himself in an effort to try to get someone's attention? There's just so many questions around it. And honestly, in that case, I do believe that the school is going to be found liable for some aspect of it because they're responsible for our children while they're on the premises.
Yeah.
They have camera systems that are obviously not working properly to ensure the safety of these children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And most cameras, I don't know what kind of cameras they're using, probably just a stationary camera, probably not like a PTZ or something. And obviously they don't have a surveillance room where they're actually manipulating the cameras. But literally you want to have an angle to a point where you can actually cover the entire room. You're not going to have a dead corner somewhere.
This one does, and that's what's strange about it, is even if you take the motion sensor excuse into account, he's in the furthest upright left corner if you imagine this frame of a picture, and it does pretty much have the whole gym, or at least more than half of it in the shot. And this is normal school hours. There are other students that could be entering this gym, and as a matter of fact, from one of the outside cameras, you can see there are at least 7 students that enter the gym at some period after Kendrick disappears. There's there's a lot of strange elements to that case. But there's also this practical element of, if it was someone that really wanted to kill Kendrick for some reason, why would you do it at school? Because of all those cameras, because of everyone being around, wouldn't it be really tough to do that?
Right, unless they figured they could get away with it, which they did.
Yeah, and CNN had an investigator that really dove into this very hard. His name is Victor Blackwell. He did a really, really aggressive job in terms of shaking this up. And, he even went down to the sheriff's department and tried to speak to the sheriff about him after they concluded that this was an accidental death. And the sheriff wouldn't give him a word, basically led him right to the door and kicked him out. Apparently, CNN has joined suit with Kendrick's family. And since that, they haven't really commented on this case at all. There is also a state attorney, I believe his name is Michael Moore, if I'm remembering correctly, that is now investigating this case and using FBI resources. And I believe there's a Department of Justice inquiry going into this, and that's been going on for, I think, about 20 months now.
Wow.
So when you consider the original police investigation went on for 4 months and they figured out their cause of death and called it a day, you now have a post-review of that happening by different departments, and that's been going on for over a year. And the only information that I've heard about that is this attorney saying, this case is a lot more complex than we originally thought.
Mm-hmm. What about fingerprints, once again? No fingerprints?
What's tough about that one is it's a school, right? So I think you're going to have fingerprints. The only thing that they found on the day they found Kendrick was there was a splash of blood on a wall, but the wall was about 50 feet away. The investigators that showed up on the scene thought that it looked kind of old. They did test it, and it was not Kendrick's blood. There is also a major point of contention with the autopsy. The autopsy that was performed, Georgia has its own, it's called the GBI, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. They conducted the autopsy, and their cause of death is listed as positional asphyxia. After Kendrick was buried, his parents decided to have his body exhumed and have an independent autopsy done. And that autopsy noted some bruising that they found on the side of his neck. And they list their cause of death as blunt force trauma. So you now have 2 different autopsies, 2 different causes of death. And something that was really interesting that came out during the second autopsy is when they got his body and they went to check for his organs had all been replaced by newspaper.
What?
Yeah.
How is that possible?
It's unheard of. The family sued the mortuary. I'm not sure. I don't think that there was a judgment in that case. I think they might have settled it out, but it's not a proper practice. Now, it is heard of that some organs could be destroyed in testing, and usually they will use cotton or possibly sawdust or some type of wood product to fill that back in. Mm-hmm. But all of his organs were gone. And from the information that I've reviewed, there is a point where the mortuary is saying, we never received them from the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, but if you look at the GBI's information, they're saying, yes, we sent the organs with the body over to the mortuary. So
wow, it sounds like they're selling the organs.
It's really, really odd. Yeah, I that aspect of the case baffles me. Potentially if they didn't want the organs tested because, if we do go conspiracy theory, cover-up conspiracy on this, if there was some type of puncture wound or if there was some type of drug or something like that. But according to the autopsies that were done, he had no drugs in his system. This was an athlete. This kid played football. He played basketball. He was into wrestling. It's a bizarre case.
Right.
Just the thought that this kid would crawl down into a wrestling mat like that just really baffles. Just doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. It sounds like he was taken out. I still think it's weird about the organs too. And considering he was an athlete in excellent condition, yeah, they probably sold those in the black market somewhere.
That's honestly a really good point.
Mm-hmm. That's what it sounds like to me. So I would be suing the hell out of these people if I were the parents.
Well, they are. They are.
Good.
Their lawsuit. I mean, they're naming everybody.
Mm-hmm. I would. This is insane. I mean, gosh,
yeah, they're throwing the book at it and trying to see what sticks. And honestly, it's a great move in terms of trying to shake out the information. If you don't have a lawsuit like that going on, you're not sure that you're going to get everything you need to really drive towards the truth. Now, what's going to be harmful about that is if the kid that I mentioned with the FBI agent father, if they are truly innocent in this, they've already lost a scholarship. Their family has already been affected by this. I mean, there's a real downside to what they're going through. But if you look at it from Kendrick's family's point of view, why aren't they going to look in that direction? When your two sons are the only people that didn't participate in the investigation, of course they're going to think that there was some reasonable cause there.
Well, not to mention the FBI connection is always suspicious. But yeah, and why not a lie detector test? I mean, what's wrong with doing something like that?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you the other thing that kind of stings me a little bit about it, and it's weird because I don't know if I believe that those brothers had anything to do with it. One of them was on the wrestling team, and he was supposedly on a bus to a different part of Georgia for an event that was going on. And that's one point of conjecture in this case too, is when the bus left. Because if the bus left at 12:30, they have footage of Kendrick after that, so they know that this kid, the one that he fought with, couldn't have had anything to do with it. His older brother potentially could have, but apparently he has a rock-solid alibi being in another part of the school. I haven't seen the official information on that, but I have seen it as referred to as rock-solid. So neither of these kids seems to have the opportunity to have been there to hurt Kendrick. One of them has a little bit of a motive in that, they've scrapped before. I've read through interviews with a bunch of the students. Some of them, there's a story that's kicking around that Kendrick might have slept with the girlfriend of one of them or a girl that one of them was interested in. There's a couple of interesting, they really feel like rumors, but some of the students say that they see a post on Facebook that talks about that someone took out Kendrick. And there was even a student who said that he knew that that's what happened. And he is now saying that he was lying the whole time. He was just trying to get attention. He didn't have any information on it.
Wow, that's so strange. Well, obviously there are hallway cameras, so you would think that they could at least track from point A to point B, location-wise, to see who went in and out. So that would narrow it down quite a bit. And then what about teacher supervision? No teachers are supervising?
Absolutely. That's what I'm wondering too. Yeah, where's the teachers in this? Now, what's interesting about the cameras, the ones in the gym, there's a gap. There's 4 cameras in there, and right around the time that Kendrick enters, 2 of them knock out for a period of time, and then another 2 knock out for a period of time. And CNN did some review and research on that, and they really can't make sense out of it. They had an independent video analyst look at it, and he believes that there is some level of doctoring going on with the one camera that is fuzzy. He thinks that the blur might be done intentionally. There is also questions about the timestamps. Apparently the timestamps don't line up properly. The school was using 2 primary digital video systems to capture all this, and the time doesn't match up on those. However, if you trace it back to kind of the last time that the bell rang, they can line up the time period. So yeah, there's a lot of aspects to that case where the school really seems to have some level of responsibility in my eyes for not managing that stuff properly.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, this is something that shouldn't have happened, and it's obviously due to negligence to some degree when it comes to the school, because there's no excuse for that. I mean, if you have cameras, you have access, and you have supervision, and you have teachers around, I mean, this stuff shouldn't be happening, technically, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. We had a question for you, actually pertaining to the other case we were discussing, but this is from Frank NKS. I always say that wrong. Solaris, please ask your guest about the invisible light agency located inside the Cecil Hotel. Was it inside the Cecil Hotel?
I've confirmed that the address is not the same as the Cecil. It does look like it due to one Google Map image that I've seen that puts a little pinpoint where the business is. The angle for the way that the building is shot, it looks like it's directly in the hotel, but it's not. It's a neighboring business.
Okay.
Or it was.
Right, and he has 666 South Main. Should I even be giving this address out? But I guess it's the 666 thing that they're referencing. Did you notice that?
Yeah, no, the address I have for it is 620.
Okay, so I don't know where that one is. Okay, so that wouldn't be the other address of the hotel either. Okay. So I don't know where you got that one.
The hotel is 640 and the ILA is 620.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Wow. Well, this is some really... Go ahead.
The ILA thing was a little weird. I did an episode where I found a comment, and this guy comes up a lot. His name's Anthony Vu, and people have found a connection to him and the ILA, and he also worked at Raytheon. And there is some thought that, he might be connected to something having to do with these invisibility cloaks. It took me forever to find a product that the ILA did. I mean, any production company out here, you go to their website and it's usually, here's my list of credits, here's where you can see our work. But I eventually did dig up one source. There was a video that they did, this kind of interesting art design video. And Anthony Vu is mentioned in that article. What's strange is people are assuming based on his LinkedIn profile that he still works at Raytheon. And if you take a look at his LinkedIn profile, there are, like for the last 5 or 6 jobs, he basically has not put in an end date. So all of them say that he's active at all those jobs. But it appears that he's not even living in this country anymore, that he's working at a new special effects house in, I believe it's in Vietnam.
Oh, that's suspicious. Would you say?
Yeah, what's really weird about that one is the time frame, because we can see that he's here around the period that Alisa's here. And if I remember right, I think I noted that there was a gap in his social media. And all of a sudden, 6 months after that, it looks like he's got this new job and he's in a different country.
That's really, really strange if you ask me.
Yeah.
I would have questioned him if I were the LAPD.
If they had a crime, but according to their point of view, this is a closed case.
Is there any way you can get access, and we probably couldn't, but get access to the people who are actually registered at the hotel?
It's pretty. Now, here's one more time. I got a shout out for my YouTube viewers and commenters, because I have one in particular that did reach out to someone, one of the long-term residents of the hotel. And as a matter of fact, I have a bit of an open offer with that viewer to send any questions back to him. This resident he's been featured in some media already. His first name's Alvin. I can't remember what his last name is. But if you look into this case at all, you'll see a video of one of the residents talking about the water, and he'll actually shows him running the water, I believe, in his bathtub. That guy has been able to talk about it a little bit. He doesn't like talking about the case, it seems like, but we've been able to get a question or two into him. The most pertinent information we found out from him is the number of long-term residents seems to be dwindling extremely rapidly, and that was one of the things when you look at this from a real estate point of view. They needed the long-term residents to get out so that they could fully justify converting it to a full-time hotel. And a couple years ago, they started a form of harassment where they would move those residents without giving them any good reason. They would just have them, change rooms over and over and over. So that's what there was a network called the Los Angeles Community Action Network, and they actually filed suit on behalf of those residents so that harassment would stop. That was settled out. I believe that they got a $90,000 settlement or something. But it seems like ultimately the goal has been served, because if you look at the history of it, there was 130 long-term residents in there in, I believe, around 2007. A couple of years after that, I find notation that it's down to about 100. And I literally just heard a couple of days ago from Alvin that there's only 19 long-term residents still living in there. So,
oh, wow. That's quite a drop.
It's a huge drop. And there was even a point where the current owner was trying to convert the building to a full, not a shelter, but kind of a place where the homeless could live and get services. Mm-hmm. And it's weird because the previous owner wanted to have the hotel because of the yuppie community that was coming in and got blocked. The new owner wanted to push it towards the needs that he's seeing. You've got Skid Row right there, and now he's getting blocked because the city is becoming, this kind of yuppieville. So it's a little push and pull. I don't really know what's going on with that building, but it just cannot be successful financially, it seems like.
No, it almost seems like it, like I said, it's almost like it's cursed. There were some stories about it being possibly haunted. I know we kind of touched on that. Do you think there's any credibility to it being haunted or cases of possession? Is that true too?
Well, I can tell you if Zach Baggins from Ghost Adventures would do a show there, man, I would watch that right now. Absolutely. if any place is haunted, it's that place. If any place has some type of demonic possession or, I mean, just think about the surrounding area. You have people in grief, literally clinging to the ground all around that building. You have a building that's filled with all of this very troubled history. And we have a death as of just a little over a week ago of another person leaping from that building or something else happening to him, but winding up on the pavement outside of it. If you're going to have a supernatural experience, honestly, I can't think of a place where your likelihood would be higher.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right. Well, considering you're a producer, director, you can get over there with a crew and do it yourself.
That's part of what I'm hoping to put together, but there's this aspect, like I mentioned before. First of all, there's the aspect of not wanting to go there.
Right, you just don't want to go. I don't blame you.
Yeah, but outside of that, I mean, if I had the right group of people, and I have a ton of viewers that are very good people that are giving me great information. A couple of them are willing to do this. I already have a few of them lined up. I just have to figure what the best type of investigation would be for me to do in that type of way.
Right.
I don't know if I can do what Zach does on Ghost Adventures. I don't have all the same type of equipment that he does. I don't know if I could even, maybe we could line up something with a long-term resident, Alvin, now and be able to do an interview with him at some point. Maybe it would help to just go there and talk to people that work there that might have been there at the time.
Right.
I don't know. There's definitely an angle on it. I just haven't really found my approach on it yet. But
right. Well, you will.
Don't count it out. It will. I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. I'm just not sure when.
I think somebody should definitely go out there. But yeah, I know quite a few people who are into the paranormal and investigations out in California. So if you need some help, let me know. Though I'm sure they'd be happy to come on board. And they have the equipment.
Definitely.
Yeah,
that I will definitely talk to you about.
Okay, great.
We would need to do it the right way. I'm not going to go out there with the Parker Brothers.
Oh no, these guys know what they're doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're out in your proximity too. I'd go. Actually, if I was out there, I'd probably go. But that's me. But I'm fearless.
No, I know you've faced some things.
Yeah. Well, I'm so different anyway that it's kind of, I'm immune to a lot of things to some degree. But I find it such a fascinating case. This is like you've already made like a detective status insofar as your investigations go.
Yeah, it's been awesome. I hear such great support around it, and really people are echoing the same thing that you are. I'm trying to take a very level-headed but still open-minded approach to this. There is no theory that I won't look into, but there are certain theories that it's easier to research. It's easier to find those tangible objects that I was talking about that can help lead us to a truth or closer to the truth.
Right.
And it's great to just hear things like, it blows my mind that people are watching, my talking head for 30 minutes at a time and hanging with the story and then hanging into it after that. I have commenters that are coming back to those video threads time and time again, pumping them with new information. Hey, John, have you seen this link? Have you seen this other video? It's been great. It's been great from that aspect. I really, it feels like there are a lot of people that care about her, care about what happened to her, aren't happy with the answers that we have, and are willing to, I literally have people willing to do work, to even shell out money. One of my viewers are how I got access to the case file for the wrongful death suit that her family's filed. Mm-hmm. They had to pay for that. They had to request that information and get it.
Nice.
So it's been amazing from that aspect. Mm-hmm. It's also a little freaky at times. I've had people on my Twitter account, hey, the guy that did it, you're pissing him off. There's certain people going into theories where it's kind of tough to follow them all the way in there.
Right.
but it's in any aspect, it's been worthwhile. And like I said, it's a part of every day for me now.
That's really a good point. Not a good point, but it's interesting because when you get close to a case and you're really good at decoding cases, and you are very good, you have to be careful because the perpetrator might get annoyed.
Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah.
And I would save those
Yeah.
Twitters. I would save anything like that, to be honest with you, on a forensics level, cyber forensics, whatever you want to call it. But literally, just because, not to give you any paranoia or anything, but you want to make sure that you're protected as well, because you're doing a really good service, but at the same time, there are a lot of psychotics, obviously, that don't appreciate people like us out there trying to do the good fight.
Yes, and if you think about the reality of it, if someone is involved in her death at all, they're watching these videos.
Oh yeah, they're tracking. Oh yes.
Yeah, absolutely. They want to know how close that theory is coming to finding them. I'm doing some preliminary investigation right now into the Long Island serial killer, and it's one of those things where that guy is watching. He's watching what the police are doing. He's watching media reports about him. I totally hear you on that. We got to be safe.
Yeah. Are you going to put any books out?
Once again, it's almost like the same thing with the Cecil. If I feel the right angle on it, I believe something on Alisa could be possible. And I've had some viewers suggest that. Hey, John, why don't you put out a book on this? Mm-hmm. It's not off the table. I mean, just with the amount of information I've already pumped out, I probably could have written a book on it. But it's doing it in the right way. I don't think I would do that unless I was able to maybe not get her family's authority, but I would at least want them considered in it somehow. Mm-hmm. There's a strange point where I've specifically asked my viewers, please don't reach out to her sister. Please don't reach out to her parents. These people have been through a lot.
Yeah.
And if there was some way where I could hopefully, maybe benefit them, or a portion of proceeds would go, but I would need to have something that would really help put them at rest. Right. If I felt like I had the theories that were close to finding what happened to her, that's probably when I would want to put it down on paper and get it out there. Right now, I still feel like I'm in research mode. That business analyst in me is still saying, John, there's still more for you to review. There's still more for you to digest here.
Right.
But when it does come out, if nothing else, if there was something that I could say to her family, I've heard that they're not happy with the autopsy. I've heard that they're not happy with how the investigation went. And if anything, I want them to hear and know that neither are we. We're also not happy. There are a bunch of us out here that are still literally cracking our brains on reasons why the police shouldn't have stopped investigating it, trying to figure out what potentially could have happened to her. And maybe in the maze of all these stories, we already have the truth and we just don't know it.
Right. Well, and also you don't want someone else to become a victim of this. If it is something like that, where there's a perpetrator, you don't want somebody else falling victim to this. So I think,
absolutely.
I wish more people were like us out there, to be honest with you, that want to go in and research things and want to know, because we help each other by communicating. And I think it's fascinating. I just love, this is the part of the internet I really like, when people are working together and researching and investigating and sharing ideas and information. I think it's excellent.
Yeah, this is where it really works. And even for the few trolls, it's definitely worth it. There's an overwhelming consensus and desire on people to help. Some people just want to watch and know that they'll tell me, you're doing great work. Keep going with this. You're doing it good. And then there are other people that want to challenge, and I love those challenges. Hey man, I've watched the video. It's clear that she's crazy. And you'll see in those comment threads, I'll go back to those people and say, okay, well, let's chew on it this way. Even if she was, how did she get in the tank and close the lid? How did all of her clothes get removed? What's this sand that was found all over her clothes? I mean, there's all these questions.
Oh, wait a second. The sand on the clothes, we didn't touch on that.
Yeah, it's noted on the autopsy report that there was some type of sand found on her clothing, and it's like at least from the autopsy report's perspective, that's an unchased lead. We have no idea what the sand is. Is it roofing material? because that would all of a sudden change the story about when her clothes came off. Is it sand from a beach? There was actually, and I haven't researched this case a whole lot, but I believe that there was a young Asian woman that was killed at the beach around the same time that this happened to Alisa. Like I did mention, her last tweet was the word speakeasy. I did a search for bars named Speakeasy, and there's one in Santa Monica. So is it possible that she, took a bus out to the beach for the day and then went to this bar called the Speakeasy and met someone and brought them back? I mean, there's just all these aspects where it feels like these leads just weren't followed up on because they've hit their conclusion. And,
right.
And that's really something about the video that, as a content creator, as someone that has done a lot of editing and shot scenes specifically to make people feel a certain way, there's something about that elevator video that hits me raw on that nerve. It feels like it's at least been manipulated to make the viewers feel a certain way.
Right.
And when you start thinking about it from that point of view, it really starts opening some questions. First of all, why was it manipulated? Why would the LAPD or whoever managed the video before them want this to look like a ghost story? Because it's the most, honestly, I can't think of a more contemporary, modern ghost story than that video. Why was it made to look that way? Why was it slowed down? Why was the time code obstructed? Who was edited out of it, or why is that minute missing? And then what's even stranger, why does it show the elevator work? I mean, if you're releasing a piece of video, hey, here's Alisa when she was last seen, like the last 30 seconds is just the elevator operating normally.
Right.
So, when I think about it as a content creator, I go, okay, if I was going to make something and I wanted to creep people out about the ghost elevator or the ghost in the elevator, I got to be sure to end the story and show them, oh, look, the elevator all of a sudden starts working properly.
Yeah, it's highly suspicious. I think the answer lies with whoever was manipulating that media from the camera. I really do. So it sounds like an insider to the hotel. And I'm not going to say Mr. Mustard did it with this and that, but you know what I mean. That's what it sounds like to me, because somebody has access to that media. Somebody was in there manipulating it, and somebody seemed to me, in my opinion, there was somebody outside that elevator that wasn't showing himself.
I really believe that too, and it does. A lot of people think that possibly someone that worked at the hotel or someone that was a long-term resident. Like I mentioned, that number is down now, so there's a good chance that they could have been there and now they're gone. But like I mentioned, previous registered sex offenders that are there. Also, we just found out from the information that we got from Alvin that the residents were on only certain floors, kind of the higher floors, and that the hotel guests were on lower floor numbers, which makes sense if we know that Alisa was on the 4th floor. What the hell was she doing up on the 14th floor? Right.
Yeah, exactly. What was pushing her up there?
And the intent. I mean, if you think about her intent, she's entering an elevator to theoretically go somewhere, but she's hitting multiple buttons. And we didn't even touch on the elevator game, which is another supernatural theory. There's apparently a game that you can play in elevators. You have to get in a building that has more than 10 floors. I can't remember the specific button pattern that you hit, but if you hit the buttons in a certain order, the elevator will take you somewhere, the doors will open, and then a woman enters. You're supposed to not pay attention to her no matter what happens. And if you do that, the elevator will take you to some type of alternate universe or alternate reality. Some people believe that she might have been playing this elevator game and somehow got transported into the tank.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. When you said her clothes were they found inside the tank with her or outside the tank?
Inside the tank with her. Also, I believe her watch and her hotel key were in there with her as well.
Oh, so they had a time insofar as the time of death and the illusion of the watch. Was it still working?
That's a good question. I didn't see any note about that specifically.
Okay.
These were noted on the autopsy information. But I did find it interesting that her hotel key was in there with her, and she's not wearing her glasses, and she was known, if you look at pictures of her, in a lot of them, she's wearing glasses. I don't know what the status of her glasses were or why she wasn't wearing them.
Wow. Well, that's a fascinating case, and I tell you what, it just to me it sounds like foul play without a doubt. So
to most, I think to a lot of us, it feels like that. And the quick story, the kind of easy answer of writing off the true motive by thinking this person just went crazy, it doesn't sit right with a lot of us.
I agree with you on that one. And you know what? We're just about out of time here, John. I can't believe it. It's been wonderful. It's been wonderful to have you on. I want to thank you so much for joining us. And everybody's loved you in chat, and I know the listeners have appreciated everything you bring to the table tonight. So thank you once again. And if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
On Twitter at Lordan Arts, and that's like Jordan but with an L at the front, Lordan Arts. Or you can go to lordanarts.com and get to the Geek and Dorks YouTube channel from there. I'm staying up to date on YouTube comments, and you can also send direct messages in YouTube. And I highly ask all of you listeners out there, if you have any information that you think is helpful to this, please, 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 in either Alisa's case or Kendrick's case, please feel free to shoot that my way. And I'm also good about giving people credit when they ask for it and keeping them private when they ask for that. So just let me know how you'd like that handled.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. You know, it's just been an honor and a pleasure to have you on. I want to have you back soon, too. And, of course, we'll touch base again. And also, please stay tuned for Shiny Side Out with David Dunger and Mickey coming up next, of course, to sail you on into the night from down under, as they always do with their fabulous show. And one thing I wanted to say, I know we're just about out of time here. Now, I always notice when I watch you on video on your YouTube channel, do you have a little Batman spotlight toy near your computer?
Yes,
I have that same
right
one.
Now.
Okay. So I had to laugh. I was like, that looks like my toy.
Oh, we need a good detective like Batman.
I'm telling you. Well, thank you so much, John. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Have a great week, everybody.
Listening to Revolution Radio.